All right, hi everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here today. This is the Dozuki Workshop Series, Season 2, Episode 2. I'm so thrilled to have everyone here. Please let our technicians know if you're having any trouble with video or audio. Our go-to guy, Eric, will answer all of your questions as we move forward. In the meantime, for those of you who have not joined us before, my name is Kate Emma Smith. I'm the Director of Outreach of Dozuki and your workshop hostess. You can contact me at Kate@Dozuki.com, and also Twitter at Kate Emma Smith for any questions or comments later on after the workshop. So today we are going to be talking about lean, and we have a fantastic expert we're so jazzed to have here with us today. Karen Bangs, a faculty member at California Polytechnic State University here just locally in San Luis Obispo. Thank you so much for being here, Karen. We're so excited.
Thanks for having me.
Maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself and your background with lean.
Sure. I'm also a graduate of industrial engineering from Cal Poly, and I think I was first introduced to lean through the Association for Manufacturing Excellence. I went to a conference that they had, I remember, in Chicago, because it was my first time, and learned all about it. And then we went back and started implementing some lean practices in the factories at the company that I worked for.
Great.
So, and then I've been at Cal Poly for several years teaching some of those concepts along with some others.
Definitely. And you just came back to us from a great program.
Right. I had the opportunity to go teach abroad in China. So I taught North American students. Students go study abroad. I went and taught abroad, and it was a fantastic experience. Yeah. Recommend it to anybody.
Well, thanks so much, and welcome back. We're so excited to have you both here and back in the country. So today, Karen is going to lead us in a workshop that we're pretty jazzed about, Cal Poly University's Lean Systems 101. And so just a little bit about the workshop here today. If you have any questions to ask Karen or myself, just put it in, just type the question into your webinar forum box, and we will answer it live here in the workshop or towards the end for our Q&A. So today's workshop roadmap is going to be, we have a lot of great content today, including defining the goal, what that means, House of Lean tools, types of waste, Cal Poly's basic elements, quality at the source, benefits of lean production, a little bit of 5S and visual management, additional resources for you to take home and explore some more about all the topics we're talking about today, and then, of course, our audience Q&A. So Karen, maybe you can talk to us a little bit about the first piece of our workshop, the goal.
Sure. So what lean principles are based on is really the foundation is that there's management support within the company to implement these items that are going to improve the company performance, with the end result being value for the customer. So all of the tools that we're going to talk about, all the tools that we're going to see listed that we're not going to talk about, they're all focused on creating additional value for the customer. And you can see it includes respect for people, because that's where a lot of ideas and improvements come from, in not only the actual manufacturing of the process, but the product development. And it's not just manufacturing, it can also be in business processes, and that we're always trying to improve. We're never at the end of the goal. We will never reach the goal, because we can always improve something.
Certainly. And I see the foundation here on our visual is management support. Right.
And so if you don't have, it's very difficult to accomplish these goals if you don't have management support, because you need resources, time, the ability to come forward with the ideas and have them be approved to be implemented.
And a quick question for just out of my curiosity, I see that on our visual we've got the 3 pillars holding up the goal. Is there maybe one of these pillars in particular that you see people have the hardest time with, or maybe they're all equal in kind of getting them as stable as possible, either respect or development or improvement, is maybe where people falter?
I don't think anyone is more difficult or they're faltering. It really depends on the culture of the organization, and where the emphasis is placed. So, so no, I don't think anyone is more difficult or there's more troublesome than another. Let's say that.
Certainly. But continue on with continuous improvement. How can you experience continuous improvement? And I see here that you have eliminating waste. So maybe you can talk to us about that.
Sure. So one of the things that we find is it's very easy to just get in the day-to-day, this is the way I do things, this is the way I've always done it, and you don't even realize the excess time or the excess material or excess distance you're traveling that you have as part of your day-to-day routine. So if we eliminate the waste, and we'll talk about the different kinds of waste later, then that's creating more value for the customer because the customer doesn't have to pay for those wastes. It's creating more respect for people because they're being energized and energetic and doing something new and exciting that they're involved in as well.
Certainly, certainly. And that brings us to another great visual we've got here, customer satisfaction and business success. So there's a lot going on in this visual. So yeah, maybe we can highlight some of the points that we see here.
Sure. So this is another version of the House of Lean, and actually you can go out online and you'll find a whole bunch of different versions about that. But where first when we saw management support, stability, and standardization as the foundation here, as far as our tools, if we don't have standardized operating processes, if we don't have a standard, stable process, it's going to be very difficult to move forward and have some continuous improvement. Right. So the tools listed above on either side of the pillars are a variety of ways to implement and increase standardization and stability within the organization. And then you can see the center of that is about the respect for people. And it's not just respect for people within the organization, it's within the group you're in, across the groups, and also you see the bottom one there, supplier relationships, is making sure that you're working with your supplier to help them improve, that helps you improve as well. And then all of those again go to that main goal that we have, which is customer satisfaction. All of the techniques within Lean are all towards improving the customer experience with your product or your process.
Great, great. So you were talking about types of waste, and I know that that many of our audience members are pretty anxious to hear what types of waste maybe that they're missing or that they need to improve upon. And so we've got a great list here that you offered us. So maybe you could walk us through some of these. And
sure.
1 through 8. It seems, I'm not sure, I'm personally not sure what all of these particularly mean. So I'm pretty excited to find out like what talent is and things like that. So.
Sure. So for finished goods waste, that's where we have excess finished goods around. And this is maybe a little bit of a silly example, but I'm a little bit of a pen hoarder. So in my office, I have 2 big mugs full of pens, and they'll last me for the rest of my lifetime and whoever takes over the office afterwards. But it's extra finished goods that's around. So it's extra money that is tied up that doesn't need to be, as an example. We also have waiting when we have people waiting to perform the next task that needs to be done, when we have equipment waiting, when we have material waiting, those are types of waste too. Customers aren't interested in having their product or what it takes to transform their product wait, they're interested in having it get to them, right? Right. Then we have transporting, so that's the movement, how we move it across the factory. So we don't want to, if we walk 10 feet, but we could really have it 2 feet or an arm's reach away, that would be much better, right?
And you do have a visual here to show kind of the details of all those 3.
Right.
And so there are a lot of details in these visuals, so it might be difficult for our audience members to see, but they do kind of better explain exactly what you're talking about with finished goods, waiting, and transportation.
Right, and finished goods, we also call it overproduction, and we consider that to be the worst waste of all because it really incorporates all the other things, and we have all of our resources tied up in that finished goods, and then if the client or there's no demand for it, then all of that ends up going to waste. Things that we've had to pay for that reduces company performance, reduces customer satisfaction because we obviously didn't have the right product to give to them.
Certainly, certainly. Right. So our next 2 types of waste, 4 and 5, over-processing and factory inventory.
Right, so over-processing is we want to be sure and provide what the customer wants, not more or less. So for example, if it's important that this chair is 2 feet high or however it is, that's great, but does it really need to be 2 feet, 0.001 inch high, or it can be 2.1 inch and it would be just fine for the customer. So we don't want to put higher requirements in than the customer is willing to pay for or is interested in having, really is necessary for the customer. And then factory inventory is a little bit like the inventory, finished goods inventory we mentioned, but this is within the factory. So we don't want to have a lot of raw materials or a lot of work in process sitting around that can also become obsolete, can go to waste, that kind of thing too.
Definitely. And then our last 3 types of waste that we're going to mention today, motion, defects, and talent.
Right. So motion is the worker movement within the work cell is what we look at mostly. And you can see, the guy is running through the cart looking for tools, but that not only is a waste of motion when you have to go search for tools, it takes time, but it also, you can see depending on body position, can impact the worker's safety and health as well. So we want to minimize that. And then defects, we don't want to rework. I mean, do it right the first time. You don't want to have to rework and make something over again. That takes time and resources. And certainly you don't want to have bad quality because you don't want bad quality going to your customer.
No, not at all.
And then talent is the last one there, and that's really making use of the people who are there doing the work every day. Is they're there doing the work every day. They have a lot of experience and a lot of ideas about how improvements can be made.
Right.
And so don't waste your employee talent is what that one is trying to say. Make use of the ideas and creativity of the people that are in your organization.
Do you have any maybe advice for folks who are trying to make their company culture a little bit more collaborative with those who do have so much hands-on experience, them with management or maybe new employees, kind of making that conversation more effective or cultivating those conversations?
Well, I think a good example is the company that I used to work for. They have what they call core teams that are responsible for areas within the factory. So it isn't just, let's say we're going to make a change in the process. It isn't just the process engineer or technician that's a part of the team that makes that decision. It's the equipment engineer, equipment technician, process engineer, process technician, the operator in the area, the supervisor for the area, maybe quality, maybe finance, maybe production control comes in. You have the appropriate team members that are going to be impacted by whatever that change is, because no change impacts only one area. It impacts others. So you involve those people in the process. So having a culture set up where you have people involved in identifying and developing the solution has been very, very beneficial.
Great. Great, thank you so much. So basic elements. This is kind of our next on our roadmap. Cal Poly's basic elements, 1 through 10. We have a lot of stuff going on here. So maybe if you could just kind of guide us through it, and then I know that we wanted to focus on 1, 2, and 8 as our kind of primary points of conversation for the
Right. So flexible resources is having people, equipment be able to perform more than one task. And we'll talk about that more later. Cellular layouts is how you have your factory floor or business process laid out. We'll give an example on a factory floor, so we'll talk about that later. Pull production system is where we build product based on the customer demand. So we're pulling product based on what customer demand is rather than building to forecast. Kanban production is visual inventory management, so it really helps control that work in process, the factory inventory very well, so that we don't have too much or too little. Small lot production is where we want to build in smaller quantities. Single piece flow is really the tenet of lean, but so that we are building closer to customer demand. And we all know we're fickle as customers. Today we want a pink iPhone, tomorrow we want a red one, right? So being able to change over from that. And then quick setups goes along with that. Is you're going to have small lot production, you're going to need to change from one part to another quickly. Uniform production levels, there's pros to having a consistent inventory or consistent production, and I use an example in my classes is it's not really conducive to have all 4 of your finals on one day of finals week, but it's much more convenient and better for the student if they have like one final a day, for example, so they can take time to prep, have it evenly loaded through the week. Quality at the source we'll talk about later. It's just building quality into the process, not passing on any defects or bad parts or questionable parts. Total productive maintenance is having the right mix of preventative maintenance. You don't want to run your equipment or your people till breakdown. I use the example of a car. If you have oil changes at a regular basis, then your car's going to keep functioning great. If you never change your oil, then your engine is going to blow up, and that's much more expensive and time consuming than having the oil changes at a regular interval. And then supplier networks is utilizing your suppliers to help them and yourself. And there's a lot of good examples about that where companies have partnered to make improvements, and so it not only helps get a reduction maybe in price or prevent a price increase or get a better quality for the customer, but then the supplier can take that same benefit and apply it to all of their customers, so it improves for them as well.
Thank you so much. We do have a question from one of our audience members. Excuse me if I'm pronouncing this incorrectly. Joseph Baylock. Question, how do you get a company culture that is opposed to change to buy in? Specifically, how do you get your upper management to sell it to the floor?
Yeah, that's a tough one. So start small is number one, and you're really going back to one of the first slides where we showed management support. You need to start with management support or people who are influencers in the organization. They don't necessarily have the management title, and starting small with with any change to go forward, and really getting those influencers to help out, and then the people who might be resistant to change, getting them involved in the process very early. That's not a guarantee, but that's what I found to be successful in the past to help make changes.
Great, thank you so much for the question. Like we were saying with the basic elements, there is a lot happening here, but 1, 2, and 8 are the ones that we would like to focus on for the day. So the first two, flexible resources and cellular layouts.
Right. So flexible resources, when we talk about that, we mean both people, equipment, and material. If you can have a person that can perform the work at all 4 stations, then if there's a backup or an issue at one of the stations, everyone can come help so that the problem gets resolved quickly. Or if there's an inventory buildup at a station in particular, then everyone can come help and then keep the flow of the product moving, as an example of that.
Right, right. So we do have the kind of multifunctional resources diagram here.
Right. So for resources, so when you think about people, those are just showing a variety of ways that we can keep people trained. Like this webinar is a great example to learn a little bit about some of the items we're talking about today. In order to have them cross-trained. And they're typically more enjoying their job, so that typically will lead to longevity at the company as well. I know at the company that I worked at, we implemented Lean in one of our manufacturing facilities down in Mexicali, and all of the operators, and there was 1,500, all of them over time, this took like 2 to 3 years, so it's not anything that happens immediately, but they all got training to become a green belt. And what that means in Lean manufacturing is that you get the knowledge of what Lean is and why we're implementing it. And so we raise that level to make them, this is maybe a little bit of a change related one too, that make them more accepting and willing and understanding why changes were taking place. An example of equipment might be, I've toured Zurn Wilkins up in Paso a couple times, and so this piece of equipment did testing for them, and while it was able to test the variety of sizes of backflow pumps that they had, and the capacity was such that they didn't need more than one, but they had set up cellular manufacturing, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and so they had 5 cells, I don't remember the number exactly, but let's say 5 cells, but they only had one piece of test equipment. And so they were really creative, and they had the cells lined up next to each other, and they put a railway sort of track on the back, because the equipment was very heavy, you can't just move it around. And so it was on a cart or a railway track, and it could move from station to station. So they took this one piece of equipment and was able to multi-source it across. Another aspect might be where you have a piece of equipment that can form more than one function. That may be a little bit difficult as we get more technical going on. And then the same goes for raw materials too, is if you have raw materials that can be used across a variety of your products, then that's any fluctuation in the demand of the variety of products isn't going to significantly impact your raw material inventory back to one of the wastes, because it'll be able to be used when part A goes down but part B goes up, you can still use it in part B. So any common set of materials is helpful as well. It would fall under that.
Definitely. And so, and moving on to the manufacturing cells, I know you mentioned that as well. These two are very colorful diagrams.
Right.
A little chaotic, maybe a little bit better on the right side comparatively.
Right. So the before picture shows what I would term as a process layout. So everything in purple is process 1, everything in orange is process 2, everything in green is process 3. So we have it oriented by process, and then the parts just go from whatever equipment to piece of equipment. There's no continuous flow or single path of flow. Where when we go into cellular manufacturing, and this would be an example of relatively 3 lines, where if it's in A of the purple process, then it will always go to the first piece of equipment in orange, and then the first piece of equipment in green. And so that creates a product flow line. And then if you reorganize so that you have ownership, management ownership, employee ownership of the product rather than the process, that creates a lot of benefit as well. The company that I worked for, we converted our assembly facility from assembly manufacturing, from process orientation to product orientation as part of our Lean implementation, and it was extremely beneficial. We used to have a person responsible for assembly who had goals and targets who's very interested and energetic in meeting. And then we had a person responsible for test who also was very interested and energetic and capable, both of them very capable in meeting those goals.
Right.
Well, sometimes they can be a little competing. When we reorganized by product line, we took each of those people and we said, okay, person one, you're responsible for product line one. Well, now that provides a whole different perspective, as they want to make sure everything goes smooth in assembly and test to get as many good products out as quickly and as high quality as possible, versus just optimizing within. So the product line, you need to change the organization structure to implement that product line structure. And it can be a line like we show here, or you can do some additional research. It can be a cellular type thing. It also increases line of sight so people can see what's going on to make sure everything is going smoothly as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. So quality at the source, certainly visual control is something that we've talked about a little bit. There's a lot of images here, so maybe you can kind of let us know what you mean by visual control when it comes to quality.
Sure. So in the upper right, where you see the tool board, that's a term in lean manufacturing called a shadow box, where this would help back with the motion type of waste that we mentioned earlier, where you can see the outlines very clearly of what tools belong at the station, and so you can do a much better job of making sure they're all there, so that the person doesn't have to go around searching when they're in the middle of their workplace. That can be I've seen foam in a drawer where you have the slot for the tools and something like, so you know,
cutout.
yeah, exactly. These are the tools that are here in order to perform the job, and so that helps you know that they are all there or not. In the left-hand corner, I really like this one. I thought it was kind of funny. McDonald's, it's making sure that all the burgers are the right height. So instead of just like eyeballing it, you have a tool that lets you know that that is the case. The bottom right shows different types of a gauge control, and so the first one shows the sign is this is the range that is bad. It doesn't necessarily say that there, but that's what that means, it's bad. So you can see, but there's no numbers on it, so that doesn't, isn't going to be really foolproof. Then we change it and we put some red. Red means bad, and so it typically in lean, go, green is go, red is stop, so bad. And so then that makes it a little easier to identify when we're outside, when we're in the not good range. And then the last one is we have the light now flashing on top. So that really clues you in that something is happening and you take quicker action. So all of these things help to prevent defects and also provide knowledge in the world rather than knowledge in someone's head. So everyone knows what's going on. It doesn't matter if I'm first day, I don't even know where that picture came from, but I know what it's trying to tell me, right? Especially for the last
clear consistency
yes,
with everyone.
right.
Absolutely. We do have a question from Ronald Ryder. He's asking, we started in our warehouse to do 5S processes. Do you recommend covering the 7 forms of waste along with the 5S?
Yeah, well, those 7 forms of waste are good reasoning for why you're doing the 5Ss. Completing the 5S helps you eliminate those wastes. So kind of back to the original question we had for the change management, if in general, when people understand why a change is happening and how it's going to be beneficial to them, they're going to be much more agreeable to do that. Absolutely. So if you go out and doing 5S, if you're showing, well, this is going to eliminate a mile of walking for you every day, or it's going to shave 15 minutes off of your time, or it's going to reduce the frustration you have of searching through this pile of junk every day to try to find what you're looking for, more than likely people are going to be willing to buy in. So it's a good support of why you're doing 5S.
Right. Certainly incentivizing these changes is kind of the giving people the rationale of why we need to do things a certain process or not. Definitely.
Right.
So quality at the source again. PokaYokes, I believe it's pronounced,
That's
right?
correct, yeah.
So what does that mean?
I like the term poka-yoke. It's most of these terms, a lot of these terms comes from Japanese lean manufacturing. Toyota's, considered the kind of the founding company of that. But I really prefer my description of poka-yoke, which is idiot proofing.
Great.
So it means that no matter what happens, you can't do it wrong. And so this is building quality in so that you just don't let defects happen. No matter how conscientious a person is, we are humans and we're going to make mistakes. So you put items into the process that don't allow mistakes to happen.
Okay.
And so these are just some examples. Most people that are viewing this probably don't remember that we used to have leaded gas. And so when unleaded gas came, they were different size nozzles, so you couldn't put a leaded gas nozzle into your tank because the unleaded was smaller. Our plugs today are good examples of that. One of my favorite personal stories is I was coming home from the gym, and I threw my gym bag in the trunk, and I slammed the trunk down, and it popped back up. And I thought, I must not have used very much muscle. And so I slammed it down again, and it popped back up again. So now I'm getting a little frustrated.
Right.
So I slammed it down one last time, and then I realized, oh yeah, my keys are in my car, or in my gym bag.
Oh.
And so my car, idiot-proofed my car for me so that I couldn't lock my keys in the trunk.
As
so
frustrated as you were.
Exactly. So I was very happy after that. But
that's
those
great.
are the type of things that PokaYoke are, is you just,
Nice.
you build into the process that mistakes are, practically impossible to happen. Yeah.
Great. So we have the one with the gas tank there. What's the kind of iceberg looking?
Oh, that one is just saying that there's a lot of issues underneath the surface that you need to be looking at. The rework causes more than just the rework or scrap that is right there, but there's a lot of other items beneath that impact that as well to go look at.
Great. So I'll return to basic elements. So our basic elements in review. What would you say? So I definitely 1, 2, and 8 were the ones that you felt were the kind of the points to hit. And I guess is there anything with these basic elements that you wanted to maybe give tips or anything to our audience about?
I think I picked 1, 2, and 8 because those seem kind of the easiest to bite off and implement, and you can do them in smaller chunks.
Okay.
Pull production, Kanban, small lot, those kind of take more broader system-wide changes in order to implement throughout the manufacturing line, including other organizations or other areas. I really like the supplier networks idea, and I think people forget how beneficial working with a supplier can be. There's an example I show in one of my classes, a video of Toyota. One of their fender bumper provider companies was not performing at all. Poor quality, long lead times, missed deliveries, et cetera. And instead of just, Toyota's huge, right? They could have brought it in-house, they could have dumped them and gone somewhere else. But instead they sent black belts, who are experts in continuous improvement, to that facility to make improvements. And then they were able to make improvements, and everyone was better for it. And so you can really learn a lot by working with your supplier. And there's a cost to doing that, but there's a cost to not working with your suppliers too. It takes a lot of energy and resources to bring new suppliers on. So to benefit the whole supply chain, I think that's a good one that people overlook.
So 10 is definitely another one to kind of keep in mind.
Right.
As you're moving forward.
Yes.
Great. So benefits of lean production as next on our roadmap, and certainly everybody's thought about, why do I need to make lean a priority and everything. And there are clearly many reasons for lean production. So maybe you could share with us some of your favorites, your experiences with these benefits.
Sure. I do want to say one thing to begin with, and this is what I always emphasize in my courses as well, is all of these tools are great. They're not all applicable in every situation.
Right.
So you need to figure out how to apply them to your particular instance. But they are awesome. Let's see. I don't know that I can pick a favorite. They're just all great ways to improve your company's performance. When you have a culture of bringing people in to help improve and make these changes, it increases the level of expertise and engagement of your employees as well. So a lot of great things.
Great. So we'll move on to 5S and visual management. I know we had some audience members asking about 5S. And so maybe just introducing kind of, for those in the audience who perhaps are new to all things lean and 5S, just kind of a rundown of what 5S means for folks out there.
The short way, we'll go through what the S's stand for here in a minute, but the short way of saying 5S is there's a place for everything and everything in its place. And that's kind of the bottom line out of it. And you have incorporate the the visual management. So not only is there a place for everything and everything in its place, but it's easily identifiable what goes in that place.
Right.
So we have the before and the after here, and you can see that when the area is cleaned up, then you can, the classic example is like in a garage or something like that. If your floor is all dirty, then you have no idea if you have an oil drip or something coming out of your car because the floor is so dirty you don't see anything, right? But if you keep it clean, then you notice that, which is an issue that you need to deal with. And then here we have things on the right-hand side, cleaned up, sectioned off, and so again, they're going to be easy to find because they're going to be in their place. Everyone knows where their place is because it's clearly documented.
Definitely. So 5S scan is the first, so sorting.
Sorting, right? So sort through the items that you need. And a process that's often used for this is we red tag, because it's very difficult to just get rid of stuff because, well, it's been here for a long time. There must be a need for it. So we often sort through, okay, this is what we need, and we keep it in. And then if it's something we don't, we red tag it and put it over in an area. And then maybe we disposition it that day. Maybe we disposition it that week. Maybe we disposition it within the next month. But we have a deadline to disposition. Disposition might mean that it goes in the trash. It might mean that it goes to recycle. It might mean that it gets repurposed to some other area in the factory.
Okay.
But it's not like it has to go right then. It's just you're making the decision and then doing the disposition after.
Definitely. We do have a question from Joseph Baylock. So a little bit off topic, he says, I host a quality clinic every day for customer returns. Part of this is going through the six M's and the five Y's. Any tips to make these more focused or smoother?
Wow. I'll have to think about that. This is I don't know if this is going to be off topic or not, but having a very set agenda and having goals that you're going to go through when you're in the meeting. I guess off the top of my head, those are the things right now.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. And Josephine, you can always check it back in with us in our forum on Dozuki.com, and we'll give you the link just at the end for any other kind of off-topic or interesting questions that might need a little bit more.
I do have one more thing to say. Going into any meeting, having an agenda of what you expect to cover and the time that you allot to each topic keeps it focused. And then as a team, if you want to go off topic or spend a longer time on that particular topic, you decide as a team and which one you're going to drop off. And then you put them in and try to put them in order of importance too. So that helps things keep focused. This is what we want to cover. And then as a team, you decide if it's valuable to go off topic or spend more time than what you had allotted.
Definitely. Thank you so much for that. So the next 5S scan, set in order.
Right. So then we want to find out where everything should go and make sure that it stays in that place. And so the shadow board is a good one. We just had some teams work at local thrift stores and back in their sorting room, because you imagine all the variety of donations and how they sort through all that. So they did a really nice job in really in the set in order, labeling the counters, developing what the process is, these types of items go here, these types of items go here, and that type of thing.
Great. So 5S, shine.
So that's keeping everything clean. So the garage floor, is the example that I gave. But so if you have a bunch of just dirt and clutter around, then it's hard to keep track of things. So the cleaner you keep it, it kind of raises, I think it's been shown, raises morale too, as you feel happy coming to that. Yeah. And I know in a prior Dozuki seminar, when Steve was here, he showed the example of the president is the one scrubbing the floor before the day starts. So it really sets the culture of what's happening. Yeah.
Because question for this particular one of keeping things kind of more tidy and clean. I know especially if your team or your company is fairly large, getting something shining, right, keeping it clean. It might be maybe a little bit of work, but you can get it clean the first time. Do you find that often the people kind of slip into old habits and then maybe don't pay attention to the labels and the mopping, and then a month goes by and you're back at square one?
Absolutely.
And that frustration might set in.
Right, absolutely. And there's a couple of ways of dealing with that. So numerous of the companies that we've toured with my classes here locally have a check sheet. Just like a simplified check sheet is when you go into the restroom at a fast food place or something, at the back of the bathroom door, it's the time that it was cleaned, right? It doesn't tell you all the things they did, but probably they have a separate check sheet for that, right?
temperature for whoever the employee
Another
is.
one, this is Zern Wilkins again. At the timing of the tour, it turns out we were there towards the end of the shift, and our tour guide was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, you're here at the end of shift. You're not really going to be able to see production." But what we saw was everyone was cleaning up, sweeping the floor, and so they allocate the last 10 or 15 minutes of every day for that cleaning aspect.
Great, great.
Yeah.
So just kind of allocating those times and maybe having a sheet that shows who's accountable.
Right.
Is probably
And
helpful.
another technique I've heard about, this goes kind of to the last 5S sustain practice as well,
Yeah.
but to offer, like movie tickets or, whoever gets a check mark, this was, I think, from Rantec, whoever gets an A check mark on their 5S check at the end of every week or whatever, the team that has 5 A's in a row, for example, gets pizza lunch or something like that. So you have
Pizza,
little
always a
incentives,
great incentive.
little incentives to go along with that as
Definitely,
well, to
definitely.
help instill the culture.
Right here at Dozuki, we've got we have a kitchen in another part of the building, and to kind of help keep everything tidy in our kitchen, one of our bosses put up a list of everybody's name in the company and said, okay, check your name off once you've cleaned up like the dishwasher, put the dishes back.
Oh.
And because before it just was always done by just a couple people who felt the initiative to do it, and it worked like a charm. No one
Right.
wanted to not have their name crossed, and then it's shown to everybody that
Right.
oh no, I didn't pull my own weight, and then raffle at the end. So definitely those things. We certainly do that here in Dozuki, is try to keep everybody on
Visual
their toes.
management can work everywhere,
Visual
see?
management in whether it's cleaning your kitchen or cleaning your factory floor.
Right, right.
Certainly. So the last 5S scan, or towards the last one, you said standardize as well? Is
Right, so you want to have a standardized process so that you're not having to relearn it when you change workstations, when you change work areas, that it's a standard operating procedure and that this is the way that we do things.
Great, great. So standardize, and then sustain is our last.
Right,
our
and so that's one
last
you
one.
mentioned, and that is
Right.
the most difficult one. It's easy to go through, and this applies in your personal life as well, right? It's easy to go through and clean up the garage, but then what does it look like a month later,
Right,
right? And so those check sheets we talked about, the having your name crossed off because you did that, having, getting an A grade and some reward at the end helps to instill that culture where it becomes part of the day-to-day, part of the culture rather than something extraordinary or different that I'm doing.
Definitely. Great. So we do want to, not only this workshop is free for all of our users because we love giving information, but additional resources that I know have helped you and your students over at Cal Poly.
Right.
So these are all great, kind of accessible to our audience as well, I'm assuming. Mm-hmm.
And I forgot to put on the Association for Manufacturing Engineers, which I mentioned at the beginning, is another great resource as well.
Great. So what are maybe a couple of the resources that you found were most helpful, or ones maybe people should shoot for immediate kind of information?
Well, GIM Academy has a lot of great short 5-10 minute videos on YouTube that you can access without being a paid member. Sorry, GIM Academy. But if you find this valuable, then you can go on and get more in depth from GIM Academy. If you're local, Central Coast Lean was started by a College of Business professor, Eric Olson, and there are numerous companies from Santa Maria and maybe even further south, Ventura County, up to Paso, that share best practices, and he hosts a Lean Summit every year. So those are great local things
Definitely. And
that
the
are
summit
happening.
just happened. This year's summit was
In
not that
January.
long
He has
ago.
a
In
January,
yep.
February. Yeah, there's actually an
Yeah.
event this afternoon
great.
about leadership, lean leadership. So it
So
applies
everyone
in
go over to
different
Cal Poly.
it applies in
Right
different
after this.
aspects. And the Toyota Way is just kind of considered the Bible of the introduction of lean. But there are a lot of other resources out there, books-wise, and how to learn about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We will open up the floor for a couple minutes for any additional audience Q&A that we have. And Karen, we just have to say we're so thankful, especially for all the additional resources and whatnot. I guess, is there maybe anything that we didn't cover during this workshop, any last minute kind of tips, tricks, or anything that you'd want our audience to, kind of the takeaways, I suppose, of if there's anything you're going to get out of this Lean Systems 101 workshop, what would it be?
Well, I think really I'm going to give the credit back to our first question in the change management, because most of these things that we're going to be talking about putting in are a change to the current way of doing things. And change management is a really awesome tool that we didn't talk about a whole lot,
Right.
that if you know how to facilitate change within your organization, then you're going to be very successful, and it's going to help your organization be very successful. So go do some more research on change management, and then it'll be easier to implement these tools. But really the key within this is the talent and the respect for people. Is I find that the more you involve people in the process of developing something new or analyzing what could be better in this, then just the smoother it is, the more engaged and excited and successful the items are in the end as well.
Definitely. When it does come to management, is there, if so for those in management in the audience, is there anything to kind of tell them? I know respect for people is certainly something that we've been has been a consistent theme in this workshop. Is there maybe any kind of tangible ways that you've seen successful management support happen in terms of respecting their folks, or even the great, like you said, Stephen Kane's example of the manager literally on his hands and knees scrubbing, kind of that model, kind of showing what other folks should be doing?
I think it's modeling the behavior, is that by showing respect for people, I mean, open door policy, these seem maybe like common sense, but open door policy and being receptive to ideas, and giving people the empowerment to implement some of the ideas that they have on their own, providing tools, skill set, resources to help them be successful. And you'd be surprised, I'm not going to be able to think of an example right now, but it doesn't take very much to of a support to get people excited and feeling like they've got a whole lot of support, right?
Yeah, certainly giving people agency, and we did touch a little bit on kind of collaboration between different people within a company, whether they're on the floor, they're in management, or they're new, or they're experienced. It definitely goes a long way.
Right.
Certainly.
Right.
We have a question, another one from Joseph Baylock. He says he's not very familiar with Gemba Academy, and he's asking if we could explain it just a little bit. I know that you've showed it to your students over at Cal Poly frequently, so maybe some of the examples of videos.
So they have a lot of research as well as videos. I'm guessing they hold workshops or conferences. I'm not exactly positive, but they provide a lot of resources that help you drill into not only the 9 lean techniques that were listed on the slides that we had, but a lot more as well. So it's just a great resource to get on the YouTube videos. Value stream mapping is one that we didn't talk about today. That I know they have videos on every lean topic that you could imagine. So it's a great way to get an introduction into the variety of lean tools, and then know where to go to drill deeper with them or in some other aspect.
Certainly, another great resource for kind of professional development.
And I'm sure that's what he was asking, but just in case, I don't think I mentioned Gemba, but the term Gemba is another Japanese term that means go and see, and there's probably a Gemba Academy video on it. But it's the engineer or manager sitting in their office is not going to be able to figure out the problem by sitting in their office. You have to go and see. And so several of the companies that are part of the Lean Forum, if probably all of them, they have a stand-up at the beginning of every day where you walk the line and you see what the issues are. They have a lot of visual management to see what the targets are, what the issues were, what some quality things were happening, et cetera, what inventory levels are. And so as a team, multidisciplinary team, they walk the line and review what that is, so they all know what they can do to best support what the goals are.
Definitely. Great. Thank you so much. Clarification, not Gemba Academy, but Gemba, which you just answered. Okay. So thank you so much, Joseph, for that question. So thank you so much, folks. If you wanted to continue this conversation, you can find us, connect with us on LinkedIn, just Dozuki as a company, our Twitter account at our handle Dozuki. Also, here's a forum, so dozuki.com/answers, ask /lean_system. So a lot going on, so you might want to jot that down. We'll have a forum where Dozuki folks and Karen can answer any more additional questions that might come up. We're gonna squeeze in one more question actually right before we sign off for today, from Ruben Perez. He's asking, what has been the greatest roadblock for 5X execution you have seen in your experience? That's a great question. I'm glad we could squeeze that one in.
Right. I think back to what we talked about earlier, earlier, the sustain. I mean, most of the time people are going to be pretty excited to do the cleanup and get everything in place, but to actually have it be sustained. So getting those practices of, the end of day checklist, that time is allocated. The example I gave was Erin Wilkins to go through and go through the 5 S's, make sure everything is happening. Also, anytime we implement something new, it's rarely going to be perfect the first time. So go back through the first day, and it's really important that these things are immediate. So the first day we did 5S, what worked, what didn't work with the team who is implementing it, and make those easy changes right then and there, so that then the next day, okay, was that better? And then the next day, okay, is that better? And then if you do that after 5 or 3 to 5, 5 to 7 days, you're going to work through those little things that people would be inconsistent or not continue with, and then now it's something that's smoother. It's taking care of all the little things that bother them and move forward, or most of them.
Great.
So
yeah, definitely. Thank you. So again, thank you so much for joining us today on our second episode of Season 2 of the Dozuki Workshop Series. Again, you can contact me, Kate Emma Smith, the Director of Outreach of Dozuki, either at my email or my Twitter. And Karen, you also have allowed us to have your email address and office number in case you have any other questions for Karen, either about lean topics and her great work at Cal Poly. I know that certainly you've been so busy with teaching and everything, so we're so grateful that you came out here to give us a little taste of what you cover in your classes.
Yeah, my pleasure, and I'm happy to answer any questions. We love connecting with the community, and sharing best practices is how we progress. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Stay tuned for our next episode. We'll announce it in the next Dozuki newsletter, so keep up with that. And then in the meantime, in the next couple of business days, this workshop will be available online in HD for free. So thank you so much, folks. Have a great Thursday. Bye.